I have a question. Does this look fun? Because it was not. I can tell you that. So I ran in the honor run, which was a great honor. But it was 6.2 whatever miles, and it rained the whole time. It rained for an entire hour and some change, and that was not, it was not fun. There are a lot of words that can be used to describe what that was. Fun is not one that I would choose out of a list of options. So this was me a week ago to the day, and it was we finished. We got our medal, and that's all that, I guess that's all that really matters. So it was I finished. So there you go. Okay. So we got two more of these. Let's talk a little bit about what the semester looks like as we wind down. Okay. So we'll have this week, we will have next week. And then you'll have a vignette next week. Then you will have your paper due. Okay. So once we get those pieces done, the semester will be completely over. So you got two more assignments. I'll grade your fourth vignette next week around Monday or Tuesday, so it stays fresh in your mind for when you approach your fifth one. The thing about your fifth one, and I'll let you know, is the previous four has kind of been your sort of interpretation and how you justify it. As we get to this last one, I'm going to be a little more particular about what I'm looking for. Okay, the fifth vignette will be a little more specific. I will, there will be a certain number of criteria that I will give you. As far as when you make your diagnosis, I'm going to be looking for something specific this time. And so it's, it will be, a little different, but it'll be kind of the same. Okay. So just be ready for that. And then in terms of your paper, like I said, I'm looking for deep dives. I don't want surface level stuff. I want more of, explaining to someone who has, I know what these are. You're explaining to someone who has never, who has never heard of them. Okay. So that'll be how things wrap up. And then the last, sort of bonus lecture. So you have this lecture next week, and then, the week of, I guess, the first week of December, I think, yes. That first Sunday in December, there will be a lecture for those of you who are interested in the field. I don't know what this is, but I'm not going to allow it. So for those of you that are interested in this field, that will be sort of my reflections on 14, 15 years in the field and what it's looked like, and, what my progression has been, and things that I have seen and can be, what I've noticed is that it's basically like, what do I wish someone would have told me when I was a junior in college, getting ready to step out into this field? Okay. So that's what it'll be. That's how things will end. If you have questions, reach out to me. If you have concerns, reach out to me. And et cetera, et cetera. So let's get started. What are we talking about this week? We're going to be talking about acceptance and commitment theory, or ACT. We're going to be talking about solution-focused brief therapy, or SFBT. And then we're going to be talking about rational emotive behavioral therapy, or REBT. Alrighty. So acceptance and commitment therapy or theory. Okay. So basically, acceptance and commitment theory uses this hexagon model. All right. And each one of them have a different thing to the hexagon. So 6 different points of a hexagon. And that's what the hexagon model really is. What acceptance and commitment therapy or theory posits is that there are things that are just out of our control, right? We've talked a lot about how in many ways we as humans try to control things that are inherently uncontrollable, but we will go to really great lengths to try to do it. And sometimes that can be really difficult to accept that. Well, the acceptance and commitment theory says, let's just fully embrace it. Okay. It's a concept called radical acceptance. This is just how things are. I may not be able to change them, and there are things out of my control, but what I can do is accept that this is how things are. Okay. Because of this, a person should seek to commit to actions which aid in enriching their life as opposed to self-destructing. So thinking about it in a different way, what are the things that we have done just as people, not just people struggling with addiction or people with behavioral issues, but are there times where, we stress eat, right? I'm sure all of you have had the little snacky foods that you munch on because you're feeling stressed, and they help to comfort you. Okay. We get the stereotypical pint of Haagen-Dazs when we are stressed out and emotional. Okay. And so we want to, rather than do those things that are self-destructing, we do the snacky stuff, but this is, similar to somebody, substance use or seeking out relationships or doing something that, would overall let me pause. Okay. I had to shut my door. Here's a little secret for those of you that don't have kids. Kids have one volume, and that is yelling. And so I have a house that has hardwood floors, and so everything echoes. And so, Cora is doing a FaceTime with one of her friends, which is fine, and I encourage that. But she has one volume level, and that is to just yell. And so I needed to shut my door. I love parenting. And so rather than go through the self-destruction piece, we're going to choose to do things. We're going to commit to do things that will aid in enriching our lives. So, when I feel stressed out, I'm going to turn to journaling instead of eating a pint of Haagen-Dazs. I'm going to maybe read instead of doing the self-destructive thing. Okay. In other words, we say suffering is a part of life, like parenting. Suffering is a part of life. Due to this, we do things to try to control. And that desire is not always self-serving, right? It's not in our best interest all the time to do the stress eating. It's not in our best interest to do the self-destructive thing that might feel good temporarily, but over time, it's not really going to pay off dividends for us. Okay. So here are the 6 core processes. Number 1, acceptance. We're not trying to change or adjust, only to observe and allow. So, when we are, rather than try to avoid a negative emotion or a negative feeling, we learn to just accept it and sit with it. It's a very mindfulness strategy. Okay. So we're not looking to change it. So if we have physically, if we have a physical discomfort, we're not looking to change or adjust, just to simply observe. Okay. Just noticing where these things are coming from. Okay. Cognitive diffusion. So we're adjusting our reactions. We don't limit our exposure to the negative stimuli. We simply decrease our fixation. Okay. So we're not trying to do things to avoid something that makes us uncomfortable. We're simply allowing it to sit there and decreasing our fixation on it, decreasing the obsession with it. So for instance, if a significant other breaks up with us, rather than trying to analyze all the different ways in which things went wrong and how could we have done things differently, and maybe I can get him back this time, or maybe I should do, rather than focus on the fixation there, we turn that into, okay, I am no longer in this relationship. What can I do next to make myself feel better or to make myself better? Okay. Third thing we're going to do is simply just be present. We're not going to make assumptions. Not going to make judgments. We're just going to exist and observe. So we're not going to sit there and think, oh, just going with the breakup model. We're not, oh, he's out with another girl. Right? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm only going to focus on me and my present experience, right? Because if you focus on that other thing, you are focusing on just like a figment of your creation. You might as well be obsessing over Mickey Mouse at that point, because that's about as realistic as it is when it comes to what is he doing now that we have broken up, right? So instead of obsessing over that and making assumptions or judgments, simply allowing yourself to be present. That is not currently happening in my present experience. I am currently not dealing with that in my present experience. That is not something that bothers me in my present experience. Okay. I'm not going to worry or concern myself with that in this moment. Okay. So self as context, this is a bit abstract. Okay. So stick with me, right? But this is kind of an idealized version of ourself that like we are able to see. I think we talk about, integrated family systems next week, but, I'm trying not to get you confused on the concepts here. But there is this idealized version of who we think we are. So, I'm sure you've seen those stickers of like, I aspire one day to be the kind of person that my dog believes me to be, right? It's sort of like our dog does not see our flaws. It doesn't see our faults, even when we, Mr. Bo is blind and on accident, I'll be busy doing something and then he'll be like right behind me and I don't see him and my shin bone clonks him right up against the head. Again, it's an accident, but he's not going to hold that against me, right? He sees me as sort of this idealized version. Because he still comes up and, when I give him pets, his tail's wagging and it's like, okay, Dad, I'm sorry. I was in the way of your shin. But it's this self as context is like, what is this idealized version of myself that is sort of up there and floating and kind of abstract in terms of like understanding who we are. We all have this idealized version of who we are. How are our actions navigating us in that direction? Okay. We are not, and many of you, I'm sure, have dealt with, beating yourself up over stuff. That is not who we are, right? All of those negative parts of ourselves do not make up who we are. Now, sometimes we screw things up and that's being human, but it is not like the total construct of who we are. So acceptance and commitment theory looks at it to say, okay, well, considering that we're not that, can we aspire to be all of these idealized versions of ourselves? And what are our behaviors? How do our behaviors navigate us towards that space? Right? Okay. Again, going with the breakup ideal. If your boyfriend breaks up with you or your husband divorces you or whatever, it does not mean that you as a person are all of these negative things, right? It hurts and maybe you did make some mistakes, but that doesn't make up the total construct of who you are. You are still whole and good and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So that is the idea. So like when we're doing things or when we're committing to things from this idea, this sort of transcendent overarching idea of this is big picture, really who we are or who we aspire to be. Okay. Number 5, our values are basically the anchor that keeps the ship in the harbor. What are the key values by which we make our decisions, both consciously and unconsciously? And number 6, due to the values from 5, can we commit to behaviors that express those selected values? One of the things that I see, especially with anxiety and depressive disorders, is that people don't always know who they are, right? I hear that often. I don't know who I am. I haven't gone through that process. Well, there is no like perfect way to go about understanding your values or what is important to you. The key is that you decide for yourself, and each person decides for themselves what are the values or what are the things that we hold dearest or hold most true for us, right? And are we directing ourselves or turning ourselves in that direction such that it can be expressed consistently over time? Okay. To be honest, acceptance and commitment theory isn't really different than other behavioral therapies. All that it does is emphasize accepting one's experience rather than avoiding it. So often we get into self-destructive tendencies to avoid emotions that we don't want to experience, past traumas anxieties, depressive symptoms, self-hatred, etc. And we don't have to do that. We are allowed to redirect some of those negative emotions and not run from them. We can learn to accept them and sit with them and grow from them. Okay. That's a really difficult process, but it is possible. Okay. How does it work with substance use disorder? It's not bad, right? Anecdotally, I have seen ACT programs often used in jail substance abuse programs and youth programs, juvie. This study was a literature review, self-reporting, and had small sample sizes. So, there's some efficacy out there, but it is still a very small sample. Okay. But it is shown to be kind of effective, right? Youth programs like to use this because it helps. It's appealing to youth and jail programs because of the establishment of values, right? It's an unfortunate, sort of backhanded way of being that morality model of recovery, which is you don't know right from wrong, which we know is not the best. So yeah, that's what acceptance and commitment theory is. It's actually pretty good. Okay. Let's talk about solution-focused brief therapy. So we're not focusing on how we got here. Okay. It's very simple. We're not focusing on how we got here. Doesn't matter how we got here. We're focusing on what we're going to do next. Okay. Yes, things are a calamity. We can sit here and analyze as to why that happened, or we can say, okay, regardless, we can say, look, no matter what happened, let's just move forward. Okay. It doesn't matter how we got here. Let's just move forward. We are constructing solutions, not analyzing the problems, right? In other words, it is my college football coach used to tell me, don't tell me how rocky the sea is, just get the boat in. Don't care about all that other stuff. Just get the boat in the harbor. It's all that matters. Okay. People, and the theory is that it isn't that we don't know how to solve problems, right? Like when people come to your office or you're working with people, it isn't like they have never solved a problem before. They have solved lots of problems. They're just having trouble solving this one, whichever one that it is. Okay. So we're really emphasizing the fact that you are a problem solver because you have solved problems in your past, right? How else would you get here? Right? Because you've had to solve problems. We all have. So what is it about this one that you're having trouble overcoming, and how can we find solutions? Okay. So this is in a brief way how it works. How will your life be different when the problem is resolved? Okay. What's going to change when this problem is resolved? How is your life going to be different? Which is the input, to give them the motivation to do it. Right. So in order to do that, what needs to happen after this session or these sessions for you to think that it was a good idea to come in? What do you need to see next? What happens next? What actions are you going to be taking to make you be able to say, you know what, I'm glad that I took those steps. I'm glad that I made that choice. Okay. And this is the miracle question. You may have, if you do counseling for any length of time, you will hear this referred to as the miracle question. If you woke up tomorrow and everything in your life was how you wanted it, what would that look like? Right? What is this idealized space that you're trying to get to? Okay. And this is a question that I usually ask with everybody, no matter what modality that I'm using. Did anything happen after our first session that made things better? The way that I usually phrase it is, after our first session together, sometimes things can come up that had been laid dormant. Did anything for you come up in that space? Tell me about changes that you have felt. What was your experience like after our first session as you've digested the stuff we talked about for a week or 2 weeks or a month, however long it's been? What kinds of thoughts or different things came up for you? Okay. Sometimes a person's problem has been handled before and they are able to explain that, right? However, there are times that they can't completely get there, but they are able to find exceptions to their problem. Right? I am so unhappy. Here's an example. I'm so unhappy in my relationship. Okay. Were you ever happy in your relationship is how we would respond to that. Because that presupposes that they have in fact been happy in relationships before, but they can't find it in their current one. However, I am sure that there are exceptions and that they have been happy at some point. Okay. So let me just break that down in sort of layman's terms. When people experience there is a reason why we start relationships with someone. Okay. So we don't just like we're not unhappy and then we find somebody and we're unhappy with them. We go, well, I guess I'll be in a relationship. There has to be some